to talk about what our government is doing and to find out where we're heading in the science field. I'm going to introduce you to two special people. The first one, as Mona mentioned, well, neither one needs any introduction. We'll start with Bill Nye, the science guy. Would you please welcome Bill Nye? Saving the world with your new Netflix program.
That's right.
Thank you.
Turn it up loud, everybody. And there is a season 2. It started in December. Don't miss it if you can.
That's right. Well, thank you, Bill. And we're also joined by someone who thinks of himself as a bit of a science nerd, and that is our Prime Minister. Would you please welcome the Right Honourable Justin? And it's pretty well known. I did say you were a bit of a science nerd. And I think whenever people think about science, Bill, your name comes up, because as far as science education is concerned, you've done it all. And you keep plugging along, and we're hearing more and more about how science is important in this world. And I think I want to start by asking how the two of you just got really turned on to science, and how we turn on our next generation, because some of those people are in this room right now.
Well, when it comes to getting turned on about science, I like to say I don't remember. I may have been 3, but I think I was like about 3 and a half. And I was on our front porch in the city of Washington, D.C., and I got stung by a bee, which was traumatic, very troubling. And I was crying, the way a guy might do, a guy of that age. And my mother put ammonia on it. And the chemist here, Caitlin, Ada, the ammonia on the bee sting, it denatures the protein. Yeah. So it felt better. But on the ammonia bottle is a skull and crossbones. You know, my mother's trying to kill me, which I can understand. But that I really did lead to a fascination. And the other thing was, I just spent a lot of time watching bees as a result of that. And aerodynamically, bees are amazing. They're just amazing. Forward, back, up, and down. It wasn't until very recently, really, till about the time most of you, I think, were born, that bee flight was really understood. There's these crazy vortices where the wings go backwards through this vortex, this whirlpool of air. It's very cool. So I digress, but everybody just appreciate how much science affects you every day, all the time. Look around the room, everything that you see, every shape here, all the material, every shape came out of somebody's head, and all the materials were shaped by somebody who understood the nature of the materials. And then a lot of people you'll meet eat food, and all the food we get now is through modern agriculture. It's really science.
Yeah, so it's everywhere.
But I think there's a bit of a wrong approach in your question, Kate, because that asking, when did we discover that we were fans of science? The thing is that every single human being starts off as a scientist. When you're a baby, you are a scientist. If I, make this noise, wow, I get milk. If I push this button or knock this thing off the table, it lands on me and it hurts. You're curious. You're curious. You're always asking questions about, well, why is the sky blue? What does this do? What does that do? Why is this way? Well, what do you mean that there's going to be consequences if I do this? Being a kid is constantly testing, discovering, hypothesis, experiment, solution, learning. It's as we grow older, we start to forget about being scientists. And I think for me, the more we can get young people to realize that asking those questions and continuing to ask tough questions about how the world works, why the world works this way, why things are this way, why are they not this other way, is absolutely essential. And making sure that we're encouraging that freedom of curiosity, empowering people to actually chase down those questions that nobody has been able to answer yet, is hugely important, both as a society, but also deliberately as we face what is an uncertain future. We know there are going to be massive disruptions in our world, whether it's through automation and AI and the transformation of the workplace, the transformation of work. These kinds of things can be really, really scary. But one of the things we're seeing in some places in the world is people are saying, okay, well, we're going to stretch out this phase as long as we can and resist the changes coming. And here in Canada, we've made another decision. We've said, you know what, that change is coming. Let's be part of it. Indeed, let's lead on it. That's why we invested $100 million in AI research across the country over the past year, and why we're putting close to $4 billion now in science, specifically a lot of it in fundamental research. One of the conversations people have had over the past years has been, oh, commercialization. Let's make sure we're investing in innovations that are going to make money quickly so we can get a return on investment rapidly on science. And yes, there's a lot of things we can and should be improving in terms of commercialization in science, and that'll always be an important piece of it. But the fundamental stuff is essential. The stuff you don't know how you're going to make money off of it 5 years from now, 10 years from now, even 20 years from now. But the discovery for discovery's sake, for building blocks that will eventually lead to new discoveries and new approaches to solving problems nobody even expected. That fundamental research is essential, and it takes a confident nation willing to say, you know what, we're going to invest now in our young researchers who are going to follow their curiosity, because we know 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, that's going to make a massive difference in the everyday life of everyone, we hope. But that knowledge for knowledge's sake and that excitement about it is a big part of what this budget is all about, and why I'm so excited and optimistic about the future we have in a challenging world, because we're investing in giving Canadians the tools to do that.
Bill Nye, you had thumbs up when the Prime Minister talked about our investments in science. Thumbs up.
Sometimes good. My understanding, I took 3 years of Latin. And look, I'm fine. But this is when you're going to kill the guy, which was popular, apparently. I paraphrase. So, but we know what this means. It's good. Now, here's the thing, everybody. We get in this thing, you use the word entrepreneurial, use the word risk-taking, and startups. But it leads to the expectation that you're going to make money right away, and you might. But most of the time you don't. And it's just, this is where I'm just thrilled that you share this view, Mr. Prime Minister, because this so-called home run mentality, that's a baseball reference, if you don't mind. It's not hockey. It's like hockey, but it's never
We don't have the Expos anymore, but we do.
And about the Expos, no, they came to Washington, D.C., my hometown, so I'm ambivalent. I mean, I'm so sorry you lost the Expos. Ish. No, so and when you go to a baseball game in Seattle, even though Vancouver is nominally a long way from Toronto, half the people in the stadium are Blue Jays fans, so it's all good. So anyway, the home run mentality, you go up to a home plate and expect to hit a home run. You usually don't. It's quite difficult. And so you just don't want to have any science program where you have that expectation that you're going to have great success right away. What do we all admire right now is SpaceX. Everybody talks about SpaceX and Elon Musk and stuff. And who doesn't love them? But keep in mind, they are allowed to make mistakes. Although I guess the company pushes very hard, it's a very competitive place to work. They nevertheless, when the rocket bounces off the drone ship and falls in the ocean, they're okay, we're going to try it again. And that's, it's a really important outlook, and you talked about this earlier.
Yeah, and that's when I was a teacher, one of the things I tried to explain to my students was, you actually don't learn nearly as much from your successes as you do from your failures. Because think about it, when you succeed, and you ask yourself, well, why did you succeed? You shrug and say, well, because I'm awesome. That's of course I succeeded because I'm awesome. But when you don't succeed, when you fail, when the rocket falls into the ocean, when you totally mess up your plans and it falls apart, why? Is it because you're terrible? No. You start to think, okay, well, why didn't it succeed? Well, because the wind wasn't in the right direction, or I didn't get the right advice, or I didn't do enough research, or I didn't have enough capital, or I didn't, you think about the reasons why you didn't succeed, and then you apply that to the next step. So there's two things about that. One, we have to be open to accepting that it's not going to work the first time, and you have to work it through, and that's what investing long-term, stable funding towards science is all about. But we also have to be able to apply ourselves to figuring out why we succeeded as well, not just why we failed. And that's something that having a strong approach on investing in science will help with.
It's a process. That's what science is. Two things for me. It's the body of knowledge, data, the atomic number of rubidium, or whatever it is, and then it's also the process. It's you guys, this idea that you can know nature, that we have a means by which we can understand nature. It's really profound. In ancient times, apparently people just accepted there was stuff you would never know. But kind of the premise of the bit in modern science is that you can know. That although there's a great deal that is not known, and in fact, when it comes to the cosmos, it seems like the more we discover, the more we realize how little we understand it all.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, we have a means by which we can know things that's so-called susceptible to analysis. You were a mechanical engineer for a couple of years.
I studied mechanical engineering and made it through, but it gave me enough of an appreciation of the kind of problem solving of engineering, the approach of trying to solve problems in a tangible way, using science, using math, using those approaches.
Yeah. I'm mechanical engineer.
You succeeded at that.
Just important to keep in mind that engineering is using science to make things and solve problems. And it's really something that we all take for granted.
One of the things that I've been talking about a lot as I travel around the world and talk to folks who are looking at innovation as the path forward, as solving those challenges, I point out one of the fundamental advantages that Canada has when it comes to science, innovation, creativity in general. And that's something that is often overlooked as a fundamental building block of success in problem solving, and that's our diversity. When you have a group of people who all have the same background, the same story, put in a room to solve a problem, they're going to approach it from the same direction. And if you contrast that with a room filled with students or people, researchers of every different corner of the world, every different religion, all the different backgrounds, all sorts of different life stories where they grew up in different neighborhoods, different approaches, when you come to solve a problem, whether it's a scientific problem or a political problem or a community or a business problem, having multiple perspectives coming into that problem actually allows you to solve it better. So the one thing that we keep saying in Canada, that diversity is a source of strength, is one of the things that makes University of Waterloo, for example, one of the top recruiting schools for Silicon Valley, because of the diversity that's built in. Here at University of Ottawa, the diversity that we have here is just extraordinary, and that always needs to be recognized as an opportunity, a way of challenging each other to think differently about the challenges and the problems that we're coming at. And that advantage that Canada has, contrasting with the rest of the world right now, is something that we're doubling down on in being open to immigration and drawing in great researchers from around the world, because we know that's going to help us leapfrog through these next challenges. Has that been something that you've experienced?
Well, I'm a big fan of diversity. Just fundamentally, everybody, half of the people are girls and women. So why don't we have half of the scientists and engineers be women? Coming of age, there were very few women in engineering, but